The Rockets might be the most disrespected number 2 seed in the last 5+ years in the West. Being a number 2 seed in the Western Conference is a big accomplishment, and they're a good clutch team. They're a great defensive team, and they're a deep team. Those are usually pretty positive indicators. But I think all of us look at this Rockets team and we're like, this is your first time here. You don't have a superstar. Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun can be stars on a given night, but they're not top 25 guys by any stretch of the imagination. So I think we all look at it like, okay, a team that lacks star power, a team that doesn't shoot great, and you're playing against Stephen Curry and a rising Warriors team that was one of the best teams in the NBA after acquiring Jimmy Butler. And I think it's reasonable to expect the Warriors to win the series. I think they're going to win the series. I think the Rockets' lack of shooting is going to affect them, especially late in games. And it's their first time there. How grounded will Jalen Green be in a playoff setting? He's the single biggest X factor in the Western Conference this first round because Jalen Green is the one guy on the Rockets capable of dropping 45 in a game. Mm-hmm. The space creation, the shot making on the right night, the explosiveness. He's a special talent on the right night. The problem is, on the wrong night, he's a living disaster. And what Jalen Green are you getting? The Rockets need the absolute best version, Jamal Murray-esque level of Jalen Green, because if they don't, they certainly don't have the firepower. And he has the talent to. It's just the floor for Jalen Green's tough every night, and they're probably going to throw guys like Gary Payton and Jimmy Butler on him. He's going to get the Warriors' best defensive options, and for a skinny kid with not a lot of strength, that's a lot to ask for him. But if he can consistently hit jump shots and open it up, it's going to propel everything for the Rockets, and that is their only hope, in my opinion, for them to win the series. Jalen Green needs to be excellent.
Absolutely, because he is one of, if not the most streaky volume scorer in the NBA. And even at that, when I say volume score, it's someone averaging 21 points a game. The Rockets' record this season when he scores 30 or more points is 13-1. But in games where he scores under 20, they're nearly 500 at 18-16. And like you highlighted, there's not another guy who can step up and have monster scoring games because I don't expect this to be an Alperen Sengun series.
No.
You have Draymond Green, who we saw versus Sacramento 2 years ago, put Sabonis in a straitjacket offensively for the better part of that series. And Sengun reminds me of Sabonis, where he has more touch with his floaters and post work. I think he's a worse finisher than Sabonis, but he, in that shallow area, can do a better job. Still don't think he's going to have a great series. This gets Draymond Green. The elixir that gives the Warriors the edge is Jimmy Butler because physically he matches what Dillon Brooks and Amen Thompson and Tari Eason are going to bring for 48 minutes. And I think that's going to be a lot of chaos. And the Rockets want to force the Warriors to turn over the ball a lot. That's been a staple. And the biggest weakness of the Warriors regime is Steph Curry. They throw the ball all over the gym. And this matchup, the issue with that is that you have Jimmy Butler, who stabilizes things. Since they brought him in, they've been in the top half of the league in turnovers committed. So that amplifies the Warriors' ability to get good shots, create open looks, and mitigate mistakes. And if you're not making many of them, it makes things very hard for this Rocket team that wants to win on the margins. Because we all know their strength is not going to be shot making. It's not going to be shot creation with Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks. It's going to be the best offensive rebounding team in the NBA for 48 minutes. We're going to get a lot of transition points. And on top of those two things, we're going to do a good enough job at forcing you into taking these tough looks and really just getting shots that aren't high percentage quality opportunities to score. And I feel like in this particular series, you have the best player in Steph, you have the second best player in Jimmy, and you can have the third best player in Draymond Green. And that's not looking at things in a very straightforward way. It's highlighting how each of those three players provide everything that you need to win a playoff series. What Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green bring defensively to me, I think is going to highlight some vulnerabilities. Is Jabari Smith going to make his shots? If you're playing Alperen Sengun with Amen Thompson, I think they need to Ime Udoka needs to incorporate it and then a lot on the ball. Because if he is off it, I'm a firm believer that the Warriors will choose to let him take perimeter shots. And that's where Amen Thompson's value will diminish. So it's going to be an Ime Udoka series where he has to figure out a couple of different things to make the spacing work. And I do wonder if he tries out the double big lineup. If he says, maybe things aren't working. They're down in the second half. What if we play together, Steven Adams and Alperen Şengün?
And just beat them up.
And I think that is something which would remind me of that Mavericks Clippers series some years ago where the Mavs were starting by Boban, and next thing you know, they're trying to outduel each other with a very out of the blue wild card. So I think that's a particular thing they could go to, because when they've played in limited minutes, it's been one of the best point differentials of any lineup in the NBA.
The next biggest X factor on the Rockets outside of Jalen Green, and I'm surprised we mentioned this guy so late, it's Amen Thompson. Stephen Curry had 3 points being guarded by Amen Thompson the other week.
Yep.
He is the biggest physical matchup nightmare for Steph Curry. He's a physical matchup nightmare for everybody in the NBA because he's probably the best athlete in the NBA.
He is.
6'7", his strength, his speed, his timing. He's got great feel on defense.
Explosiveness and length.
Steph is not going to create a lot of consistent space on Amen Thompson. The best hope he can have is your team sets really good epping screens, and you can trick him with your timing, get him jump in the air a lot to create space. Because otherwise, Amen Thompson is the biggest Steph stopper in the NBA, because how many guys allow Steph Curry to score 3 points in a basketball game? So if the Rockets could take Steph Curry out of the series on top of Jalen Green playing well, they're going to win the series. That's their formula. Because I agree, Alperen Şengün is probably not going to have a great series. He's kind of a soft basketball player.
Ooh, okay.
I just said it.
Wow.
He's a flopper and he's a crier. He is. And Draymond Green on the block is going to be mean to him, and he's not going to get calls, and he's going to get in his head about it. That's what Alperen Şengün does. So if they get into Alperen Şengün's head, which I think is highly possible with the Warriors whistle in the playoffs with Draymond Green, they need Jalen Green and Amen Thompson to go out. And John, you were shocked when I called him soft.
Mm-hmm. I was. This is my thing. He reminds me of, as a post scorer, Pau Gasol, where Pau, before he got to the Lakers, was called soft. I think he's a tough basketball player. I wouldn't call him soft personally. And I think
he's a crier, dude.
Him being one of the strongest players in the NBA, him being someone that can move people, it's a lot like Sabonis, but he's not as strong as Sabonis, don't get me wrong. I think that we do underestimate him just a little bit. I don't know what it is, but I remember people said that back in the day about Pau Gasol. Then he got to the Lakers, and he's put up 18-plus rebound games in the finals. People saying that ain't soft.
Alperen Şengün, though, is one of those players who kind of comes off as one of those guys who he's going to get physical with you. He's going to try to trick you, and if it doesn't work, he gets into his head. That's just my watch when I watch him do it. He's a very emotional player. He's emotional, and you can beat him up when you get him out of his game. He's like the bully who punches and you punch back, he cries. Is that bully soft? You can argue. That's my read on Alperen Şengün.
Jokic was flopping though yesterday, and there have been moments in different playoff series where he's gotten into his
Jokic
head.
is a flopper. Yeah, but he's not.
I think he's one of the toughest players I've ever seen.
Nikola Jokic is a straight killer, though. What has Alperen Şengün shown to be a straight killer yet?
Was a league MVP and draft league and 17 years old.
That's
a killer.
That's Turkey. He's in the NBA now.
Fair enough.
He's in the NBA now. It's his first time in this big moment. We'll see. Okay, well, I'll tell you this: if he keeps his cool against Draymond Green, I'll take back everything I said. I just don't anticipate it, and that's just my point. He's very he gets his head out of the game pretty easily sometimes, especially when it comes to his desire in manipulating the refs with some of his movements, and then he freaks out when he doesn't get it, and then he starts getting a little chippy and emotional. I consider that soft. That's just me. But
the question is resilience, and I understand that better. I think we talked about a lot of X factors of this Rocket team because you don't know what you're getting with Houston this year. They were a dominant regular season team. They play with a defensive intensity that will absolutely be transparent in the postseason. That's not going to change. There's Jalen Green. That's a big X factor. There's Amen Thompson. That's a variable that can completely put a ripple effect in this.
Amen Thompson can completely change the series.
You know who can also change the series?
Who?
You go first.
If Amen Thompson is guarding Stephen Curry and he's being an effective decision maker with the ball in his hands, that helps the Rockets a lot. Amen Thompson, in my opinion, is the best player on the Rockets. And if he can be the best player on the Rockets this series, and Jalen Green can also elevate his game, that's how they win the series.
The last X factor, and there's a few, is Dylan Brooks. We talked about before Julius Randle, who was an infamous playoff disappointment, letdown, and choke
Yep.
artist. And quite frankly, his true shooting percentage in the playoffs was so bad it would be relative to what guys are shooting in the 1940s, which is
Yep.
pretty embarrassing. But number two on the worst true shooting percentage list in the last 5 years in the playoffs is none other than Dylan Brooks, who last 5 years, it's actually the last four because he played well in the 21 playoffs. Anyways, and the last two times that we saw him in the playoffs, and in that 2023 series versus the Lakers, he was so bad that the Lakers left him open, said, "You're not going to hit these threes," and he couldn't hit water from a boat. Then the Grizzlies said, "You know what? We're not bringing you back under any circumstance." That, for a player who was possibly, arguably, one of the best 3 and D wings, they then didn't replace him. They did Marcus Smart when they traded him. And he goes to the Rockets and has shot 40% the last 2 years and helped them go from bottom 5 to top 5 defense. But we still don't know if he's going to sustain and build off that level of shooting in the postseason where we've seen him be very streaky. And I think that epitomizes why I have the Warriors winning the series in 6 games. I know that Steph's going to have a couple of down nights, but Jimmy Butler, they don't have an answer for him. I don't care if Dylan Brooks is a good defender who plays physical. Jimmy Butler will rip him apart. And I think in many series like this, where if you've got someone who pokes a bear at LeBron James, you'll have LeBron go crazy. If he tries some funny stuff from Jimmy Butler, I could see him tearing him apart. We saw Jimmy have 38 points, go to the foul line 18 times when the Grizzlies dared to put Zach Edey on him because they didn't want to get Jaren Jackson in foul trouble. He will put you in foul trouble. I don't think Dylan Brooks fouls a lot. He does not. But Jimmy Butler will take over the series. And if he has to, he'll be the Warriors' best player, most productive player if they have to win. So I think that's what makes this fun. I hope Dylan Brooks starts to play a little bit Jimmy. I want to see that version of playoff Jimmy.
The Rockets and the Warriors have arguably two of the chippiest rosters in the league, some of the biggest barkers in the Western Conference.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be very fun to see fire and fire clash that way. Would you be surprised if we have a fight this series?
No.
I could easily see a fight happening.
I don't see the benches clearing though. I think that's
I think there's gonna be multiple like physical moments and technicals, and I don't think there's gonna be a malice at the palace, but I do think there's going to be a couple of moments. I think Dylan Brooks will get into it. I think Draymond will get into it. I think Butler probably gets into it. Tari Eason is obviously a firecracker too. So it's a fun physical series. I think both teams probably respect each other's intensity, but it's the youth and the depth versus the veterans and the star power.
Yep.
And who wins? I'll bet on the veterans and the star power.
Yeah. And also, last thoughts for the Warriors. Eric Potts is a rebound, the best he ever has in his life because he's their best positional defender. And I know that Jonathan can make his bed in the doghouse. But on a series which invokes chaos and maybe not as many good decisions, I think it's the right setting for Jonathan Kuminga to get an opportunity to get some burn.